Yeah, and feel free to just say hi in the chat, tell us where you're watching from. All right, I think we can get rolling. So welcome again. My name is Amelia Dufresne. I'm the head of community here at ZenHub, and thanks so much for joining us today. Super excited to have you here. And yeah, I'm here facilitating the discussion, and I'll also be troubleshooting in the background. If anything comes up, feel free to PM me through the chat or just let me know what's happening. If you have any questions or anything, use our Q&A feature. And I'm joined here today by John Garrett from ClearPath and Tabang Mashalagu from ZenHub. He's our VP of Marketing. So John is the founder of ClearPath Strategies. He's had many, many years of experience advising leading tech companies and open source foundations from Microsoft and Google to the CNCF and Cloud Foundry on fundamental strategic questions. And prior to getting into tech, John advised global political leaders at all levels of government, which is super cool. And I definitely want to hear more about that, John. And Tabang is our current VP of Marketing here at ZenHub. He's also a tech industry veteran, having done everything from engineering to marketing and product management. He was previously the VP at the Eclipse Foundation, which is one of the world's largest open source software foundations. So over to you, Tabang.
Thank you, Amelia, and welcome everyone. Really excited, as Amelia led off there, really excited to share the results of this research with you all today, and happy to do it with my my good friend John here. So first off, why did we do this research? Well, selfishly, we wanted to gain insights and to validate some of the hypotheses and bets that we're making on our product roadmap. And overall, the results are very consistent with what we've heard anecdotally from our customers and what we've seen driving our growth as a company over the last few years. We surveyed over 260 founders, executives, team leads, and project managers, developers, and other key stakeholders at startups and scale-up organizations with fewer than 1,000 employees. And what we learned is that today's software teams care deeply about innovating and moving as fast as possible. And they are focused on driving productivity and efficiency as a way of achieving just that. And they're also prioritizing developer-friendly technologies, tools, and practices as a way to get more meaningful work done. I'll just pause there, and John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tabang. So, you know, in a way, it's obvious when you say it, but it all comes down to developer productivity. As Amelia said at the outset, I've been in the tech space, advising tech companies for many years, for the entire trajectory of you know, cloud transformation that we've seen, digital transformation, the you know, maturization process of cloud. Prior to that, and still, by the way, I had a very interesting other half of my career in international politics. So we always focus on things from a strategic lens, and the crux of it in tech is the crux of the strategy for most companies, and both in the technology space and also, you know, as software continues to eat the world for companies in general, is all about developer productivity. The arc of time, therefore, bends toward abstraction and automation. You want your developers developing. You want them doing it faster, more effectively, more efficiently, because for you as an organization, that is customer satisfaction, that is revenue. And when developers are not creating, that is, you know, opportunity cost. That is loss at worst. And from the developer perspective, they want to be creating. They want to be building. They don't want to be managing projects because they're developers. They're not PMs. But it's an important reminder. It's easy to get lost in the details, which we're going to do here. We're going to have a walk down some of the details of how disruptive software teams are developing. And it's easy to get, you know, lost in the flashy headlines or the new toys. It's easy to become over reductive and think that it's all about, cost or price, TCO. At the end of the day, the two most valuable commodities that you have, that most companies have, are their people and their data, and specifically developer time and the ability to leverage that data for revenue generating activities is what it comes down to. And so for me, that's what it all comes back to, Tabang. It comes back to developer productivity, empowering developer teams, and getting more meaningful work done faster.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And let's get into some of the key findings here. So in the way of top trends and key takeaways, I think overall respondents in all roles, and that includes senior leaders and developers alike, they care about productivity, as we've mentioned. They care about innovation, automation, and collaboration also scored highly as key factors and areas of focus and interest for folks. Keeping teams aligned and productive is the top priority. Productivity was seen as a driver not only for innovation, but it also helps deliver a competitive advantage and edge, and enables teams to deliver the best possible value to their customers. From a developer perspective, folks are looking to get more time back for what they do best: coding and core technical work, not spending time in meetings about the work. So doing the work and not talking or planning the work. Leaders and process owners, for their perspective, or for their from their perspective rather, they want to give developers the tools that they want to use, and they want to create the conditions and environments for tools to focus on the task at hand, which is pushing that innovation envelope. I think at this point, it's probably good to note that we're seeing a supply and demand imbalance for software developers globally, and even with estimates vary, but even with about 25 million software engineers globally, there are simply not enough skilled developers to fulfill the needs of software companies. And that's really what's driving this competition for global software developer talent. And that problem is especially acute for startups and small companies who don't have the resources of the larger organizations to attract engineers who can help them change the game and change the world in the case of some companies who have those lofty ambitions. So recruiting and retaining engineering talent has really emerged as a basis for building that edge. And certainly that's what comes home in these results. One call out, and probably for the audience here, no surprise, it's almost hygiene at this point, but open source is critical. 83% of our respondents see open source software as very or somewhat important to their team's success. It used to be that open source was about cost avoidance or being a rebel, but these days open source and the collaborative model that entails is the default model for driving innovation in software, and the results here indicate that as well. We're actually seeing, and this is reflected in our findings, is that open source gives companies, particularly on the lower end of things, the ability to compete head to head with larger established players and incumbents. I'll just pause there. John, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's you kind of hit the main points. I mean, just on the last point on open source, it's been fun. So one of my early on-ramps into tech, I should say, was around the file format fights against Microsoft and OpenXML, and they were actual protests in the streets of Oslo or Copenhagen. I can't even remember at this point. It's been 15 years or whatever. That's how you go from political strategy to tech strategy, by the way. You find people protesting some file format randomly. But open source has gone from this sort of quixotic anti-Microsoft crusade. It's gone from being about values driven or a moral cause, and now it's the source of disruption. It's where companies and individuals are pushing the edge. That's why you see, partly why you see, I should say, a lot of the big players in the world, putting more out there, committing more to open source, whether it's Google and Kubernetes, though again they've got their own reasons for doing that, or what have you. This is, there people and companies recognize that open source is where innovation happens, and it's a recruitment tool now for companies. Not only is open source a smart, pragmatic choice because it allows you to be ready for whatever the next technology is and just plug that right into your stack, which is important, but it's also a recruitment tool because that's what the developers want to be able to do. They want to be able to play with things. They want to be able to use the tools they want to use. And so as companies, give them that freedom in a situation, as Tavong talked about, the competition, the acute competition over developer talent, companies need to recruit, more and more, of these, this finite resource of these talented developers. They're looking for an edge with these developers, and one edge for recruiting them is to give them more freedom and allow them to use the tools they want to do, and that makes them more attractive.
Yeah, certainly. And speaking of an edge, I think that's probably a good segue into the first kind of section of our closer look at the results here. So, one of the things that we asked is what are you seeing as an organizational priority in the way of particularly tooling and project management tools at your organization, right? And we heard that leaders at these organizations are investing in providing those tools and fostering environments that best suit the needs of their developers, right? So that is a priority, and that means empowering folks with the tools they want to use, and again creating those environments for many of us. Between John and I, we're separated by an international border here. Being able to engage and collaborate and coordinate the work, deliver the work across time zones and in many cases asynchronously, right? In a way that best suits the employees and delivers the best possible value to customers quickly. So companies are looking for an edge to help them innovate faster and also, as we've already discussed, attract and retain that top talent. So features and capabilities that best suit the needs of my software engineers and developers came out on top as a 31% on the priorities list. Second was empowering teams to deliver value to customers. So I mean, with our sample size, that's probably within the margin of error. So you see that these are really competing. These are top competing priorities. We're also seeing the interest in technologies like AI and machine learning. And we're going to delve into this later on from the developer perspective. Any takeaways, John, or anything to add on this?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, the dirty little secret about margin of error with online surveys, which of course these all are when you're dealing with developers, is that it's not really a thing. I mean, you can't actually know what the margin of error is for a group that you don't know what their relationship is to the universe, which is a really nerdy way of saying the supposed margin of error. This is all pretty close, but when you see lots of different things throughout surveys pointing in the same direction, then that's when you can start drawing these conclusions that we're drawing here. And you can see that that the organizational priorities, which this is, when people pick two, which is what we let them do, they're looking at, how do I empower my teams? How do I empower my teams to deliver value to my customers? That's the focus, rather than at the bottom, you see things like delivers solid ROI or competitive pricing. It's as we've gone through the stages of digital transformation, companies have realized that IT is, and tech generally is, not a cost center. I think we've gotten out of that move beyond that debate. It's a revenue generator. But then, we can reduce that to the next step. Okay, well, how do I maximize that revenue? And I empower my teams. And okay, how do I empower my teams? Well, I give them the freedom to choose the kinds of tools they want. I push them towards doing more with the latest ML and AI, and help them maximize the value out of data, for example, with those tools. Then that is where I get my edge. So you see things like supporting involvement in open source communities and pushing people towards AI and machine learning. That rises to the top rather than these, even though this is organizational priorities, rather than these more, what we might think of as organizational metrics like ROI and pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a surprising result for me. And when you run these, as many of these surveys as I have over the years, it's great. It's great to still be surprised by some of the responses. So with that, probably that's a great point to actually go to the audience and ask a poll question. Oh, there it is. I'll just read it out as well for folks. So, what is your team's most important priority when it comes to selecting a project management tool? So select one of these options. Option 1, it provides an easy and efficient way to communicate with my team. Second option is it keeps teams aligned and productive. Third is it helps our teams achieve sprint goals. Fourth is the functionality allows our team to be more innovative. And then fifth, and I got to say, this is one of my personal favorites, not to influence the responses here, but
too late.
That's right, too late. It reduces the need for excessive meetings. So let's give folks a few seconds here to respond. I will also respond here.
Oh yeah, you may as well do that too. Yeah, funny. It's funny. I love these little polls, and I don't know if we're going to be able to look at the results. I sure hope we do, if they come up immediately or not. The irony, of course, is that this is working, or seems to be working, whereas we couldn't figure out how to screen share properly. So you get Tabang's web browser up on top, but hopefully this works.
Yes. And Amelia, will you let us know when if there are results that we can share?
Yeah, I'll let you know. We'll be able to share them after the event too.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let's keep on. I'm in Ottawa, so I don't know if I should say keep on trucking here, but anyway, keep on moving. So the next area of focus is, what were product leaders, those team leads, those process owners, product managers, product owners, what were they looking for in order to boost productivity? So the results here were interesting, to say the least. So the takeaway is that these leaders have moved well beyond traditional interests, such as scoping projects and having visibility to the roadmap, to a focus on minimizing distractions and maximizing productivity, right? So they're looking for those tools and capabilities that would help in that mission, right? They're trying to, 33% of them are trying to keep their teams aligned and working toward a common goal. They're trying to make it easier, they're motivated rather to make it easier for team members to collaborate. And also they're trying to minimize unproductive activities and meetings. The need for simplicity really dominates the priorities there in terms of driving that focus and alignment. John, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, or like you finished it with, it's driven by simplicity. It's driven by efficiency. How do you? It's like the flip side of how do you empower your developer teams? Like, you don't get in their way, right? You abstract things that they shouldn't be focused on. You automate things that you can automate, and you make it as easy as possible. Make sure they have the right tools and processes, or your teams have the right tools and processes in place, so that you can maximally flex their abilities, their time, frankly, when and where best you can.
Yep. All right. So we also asked, folks, if you could pick a project management tool, a new tool, specifically tailored to your needs, what or which 3 improvements would you prioritize? And respondents across all roles said that their top wish on the list for improving their existing project management tools or choosing a new project management tool would be to help developers increase productivity and spend their time on meaningful tasks. So, we saw that automation was viewed as essential to increasing that level of productivity, and also, a word that we have seen increasingly pop up in our journeys, talking to customers and looking at the literature, is developer happiness. So job satisfaction, right? Again, tied to this larger trend of competing for talent, the acquisition and retention of these highly skilled resources for many organizations. Teams are looking for tools that allow people to focus on those core development activities. So that's a common theme or recurring theme. And this is an interesting one, especially in the context of automation, is that they're looking for capabilities that reduce friction between the areas of the business. So software development is a team sport, and they're looking to ensure that the handoffs, the baton, if you will, to extend the metaphor, is handed between teams efficiently. And we're also seeing the interest in enhanced decision making as well. John,
I mean, it's we were talking about this earlier, Tabang. It's 2022. Two supposed tech experts should be able to figure out how to screen share our slides appropriately, but also project management tools should be smart enough to allow developers to automatically update issues based on actions in the repos, and to programmatically hand off issues between dev and QA based on logic. These same tools should be able to tell you and your stakeholders with a good amount of accuracy. It should be able to predict when the different steps are going to be done, or when a feature is going to be available. So many of these things that we spend all these excessive meetings doing, or are having to get updates from team leads. Like, this should be automatic. Developers shouldn't have to worry about this. So many of these things should just be handled for them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and borne out by the data as we see here. So one thing that in our line of business and conversations comes up a lot is which project management methodology is the winner and trumps the others, right? So we asked the question, which of the following PM philosophies and methodologies do you or your team employ? And the answers were instructive in a few ways. First of all, not a huge surprise, dare I say, that Agile came out on top. So 25% of respondents, Scrum was second at 20, and Waterfall at 16. But when you look at a level lower, really what this is telling us is that while Agile is the leader, folks, particularly at startups and disruptive companies that we surveyed, are far from being dogmatic about their methodology, right? They want to use the approach and the methodology that allows them to get from point A to point B fastest, right? It allows them to get the job done with a focus on results rather than being purists. John, anything to add?
This is the one that actually surprised me the most. I maybe this is me being dogmatic or rigid in my thinking, but I expected Agile not only to be top, but to be, significantly at the top, considering who we're talking to. We weren't talking to, crusty old, Fortune, 100 companies, 150-year-old companies or whatever. I guess it's a better way
who we love and respect. Who we love and respect.
Whom we love and respect. So this is the thing. Like I'm a consultant. I can call them crusty. Tabang can't. But I expected, Agile. This isn't, again, this is 2022. This is something that companies have been striving for a long time. So I expected that, or at least small A Agile have been striving for a long time. So I expected capital A Agile to be even higher than they are. But to Tabang's point, companies are using whatever fits best, which makes sense. It's same with tool selection. Some companies will, select tools that are best of breed. Some companies will select tools that are fit for purpose. Some companies will select tools that are, this is again, hat tip to open source, that are flexible for not only the best technologies or the technologies they might need today, but also for tomorrow, right? Yep. So you want a technology that's going to be, viable down the road, as opposed to tech debt that you're trying to migrate away from. So this makes sense to me in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sets up our second poll question of the day here. Which of the following project management philosophies and methodologies do you prefer? Agile, Scrum, Waterfall, none of the above, and a mix of the above, whatever gets the job done. Those are the options.
Now that we've thoroughly biased it by talking about it.
Yeah, maybe we should have reversed the order.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just, take my consultant hat off and put my researcher hat on, but yeah, damage is done.
So Amelia, let us know how long we should,
Yeah, I think we're good. We can move on.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So happy developers are productive developers. All right, let's kind of dig into that. So, I mean, here happiness is somewhat of a loaded term, but really what we're talking about is that job satisfaction and, folks who are not only willing to perform at a high level, but stay with a company and be motivated in their work. And it turns out that developer priorities include standardized workflows and as a way in particular to eliminate guesswork in their roles, automation to eliminate tedium, the tedious tasks that often fall upon engineers and take them away from doing that high leverage work. And then flexible tools that allow them to work wherever and whenever is best for them. So, you have teams that are distributed not only across cities, but across regions, across the world. So how do those folks get the best, do their best work rather? Anything to add or call outs here?
Yeah. Sure. I'll just add more color. From my own perspective, we've been doing developer research for a long time. We've been focused on developer happiness for years, specifically developer happiness. And I will say, or caveat up front, developers are often treated as a monolith, right? Like some monolithic group, and they're very much not. And I don't just mean in the sense of front end or back end or full stack or what have you. I mean, even or web or mobile, like whatever, like even within its own space, developers are not monolithic. They have somewhat different motivations, or they have different, ways they flow best or what have you, different, pet peeves, but in some ways they're all very similar. It's like people are people everywhere. We're all different, but we're all similar. And one of the ways they're similar is that they just want to build something or solve a puzzle or create something or see that creation in action. They want to see the completed project. And things that let them do that is it's the things that let them do what they love and are passionate about as developers is a good thing, right? We can distill it. Back in my Cloud Foundry days, we distilled this down to a simple slogan: freedom to create. And that's the crux of it. And so when you can get rid of this tedium, as Tabang said, or you can eliminate guesswork and make everything clean and clear for them to free up their mental space to focus on their priorities, that is a win.
Yeah, fully agreed. So, what are developers excited about, right? So we asked that question, right? We asked two questions. So on the left side, we asked below, given this list of technologies and processes, please indicate whether or not you use it, have used it, or plan to use this technology or process. And then on the right side, we asked for the same list of technologies and processes you are producing or planning to produce, which one of these are you most excited about? Right. And, newsflash, not really surprising to most folks who work in the industry, is that developers, engineers want exposure and opportunities to work with the latest technologies, right? That's why, many of us got into this industry, right? And they see 28% of them see artificial intelligence and machine learning as the most excited, the umbrella of technologies that entails rather, the most exciting tech trend. Serverless, microservices, edge, and observability round out the top 5. So the, dare I say, usual suspects. I read a lot of this industry research and not huge surprises there. Anything to add here, John?
Yeah, no, this one's really cool to me. What we don't have on this slide, but I have from other research, I don't think we asked it in this survey, Tabang, is what are you being asked to do from your CIOs, your team leads? What's the organizational, we did ask organizational priority, but what is the organizational priority of what kind of work are you being tasked with as a developer? And what we see in other data is AI and ML is increasingly important to, and I'm using that term broadly, we can have a debate on what is machine learning, what is AI, but developers, including front-end developers, including JavaScript developers, are being asked to do things touching on AI and machine learning. And that's because as companies figure out what their competitive edge is, one of the things that is their competitive edge includes leveraging their data, whether it's real-time data or just massive amounts of data, whether it's open source data or their own proprietary data. Data is a frontier that we are rapidly approaching. And so even front-end developers are having to do more and more with AI and ML. So it's really cool that that's also what they find cool, right? So it's an organizational priority to create competitive edge. And it's something that developers are acutely interested in and learning more about, which is great because you can't hire your way out of this problem. There are only so many data scientists. And by the way, they're really expensive. So what are you going to do? You're going to have a more, you're going to have to leverage your JavaScript developers to do more and more of this work. And so the data here is awesome in that it shows that that's the work they want to do. So this is really cool. Yeah,
for sure. Which brings us to the third and final poll question of the day. Which of the following technologies are you most excited about? AI, ML, serverless, microservices, edge, or other? Let us know if there's a technology that we haven't factored in there. So containers and container orchestration as an example.
Yeah, I mean, this also may be just a snapshot of where folks are in their journey, right? Like if your company is just now getting into containers and Kubernetes, then that may be the most exciting thing for you and for your company, right? So this is a non-judgmental, no values behind this, just sort of a what are you excited about?
Yeah, it's like fashion. It's
I'm in Denver. I have high fashion. My Denver plaid. Everybody fit in.
I'm in Ottawa. I dress for warmth. All right, Amelia, let us know when.
Yeah, we can move on. I've saved the results here.
All right, so thank you for that. So let's get to some recommendations, right? So we looked at the data. So John and I and the rest of the team here, we looked at the data and thought we would distill this into some recommendations for folks, right? So they're organized into two swaths, if you will, for the project, product, and team leaders, and then for the executives and founders, right? So first of all, prioritizing automation to increase productivity, right? So this is something that has, as we've spent the better part of half an hour talking through, this is something that consistently has come up as in responses as a way to drive productivity, is focusing or helping developers focus on that meaningful work, right? So particularly when you're a small company, when you're a startup, or let's say a high growth organization, you need to really allow your folks to focus on high leverage activities. And one way you can do that is by giving them the tools and processes that automate those routine tasks. As John mentioned, it's 2022, and I think the 90s and 2000s have called and want their PM tools and their tool chains back, right? So I think what we're hearing is that that's a good way for folks to drive real innovation, is by helping them and helping their teams focus on productive work. Secondly, enabling cross-team visibility and collaboration. So building software, as we talked about, is not only a team sport, it's a multi-team sport. And we're seeing teams separated by geographic distance, time zones, as we talked about. We're also seeing people collaborate in the open source ecosystem across organizational boundaries, right? So the tools that you use have a huge impact on the velocity, the quality, the nature of that interaction and collaboration across a single organization or across multiple, right? So the recommendation here is to select tools that break down those information silos and really flatten the layers of information as a way to drive coordination and collaboration among the various team members. Add context and eliminate confusion, right? So providing context to developers and other technical stakeholders to the software development teams helps them all gain clarity around the not only team objectives, but organizational objectives. So we hear consistently about team leads and POs, product managers, wanting to gain better visibility into the work that developers are doing. That's one aspect. We're also hearing the opposite, which is developers want to know that the work that they're doing, the issue that they're closing, that they're working rather, actually is driving the organizational goals and objectives, right? So creating a bridge or using techniques, tools rather, and methodologies that really facilitate that connective fabric between the code and strategy, if you will, is really important. And then finally, as we talked about, open source is the default mode of innovation. The collaborative model of open source has won. It's a great equalizer as it helps these smaller companies to compete head on with the larger incumbents. What a lot of folks, particularly when you're trying to make an opportunity cost decision about whether to ship a feature or to contribute to the open source community, giving back is such an accelerator, right? So as John mentioned, it's a way not only to crowdsource R&D, but participation in these communities is a recruitment tool. It allows you as a small company, as a small organization, to increase your profile and really attract the type of talent and really burnish the credentials of the company. So covered a lot there. John, any quick takes based on the recommendations for product and team leaders?
I will make a very quick take, which is to say that, one thing I've enjoyed working, one thing we believe, I would say, at ClearPath is that research should be prescriptive and not descriptive. And I appreciate working with you, Tabang, in particular, because you get that as well. And so I really like how you've captured that on this slide, and what I know is the ultimate slide coming up next, captured these recommendations, distilled the data rather than just describe the data, which, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Your words speak for themselves.
All right, I owe you $5. So, right, recommendations for founders and C-level execs, right? So, I think there's some mirroring that you'll see here in the recommendations for organizational leaders. Invest in tools, processes that drive team productivity. I think maybe just underlining the team here, because there are a lot of tools. There's an emerging class of tools that focus on individual developers and trying to squeeze that quantum of productivity out of that individual developer. what we are seeing both in this research and also in our day jobs is that elevating that developer experience, driving that team coordination and collaboration is really about establishing, I think I said this before, that connective fabric between team members. And I think what we recommend based on these results, what we've seen and what we recommend is that leaders should prioritize making those types of investments. I think this will resonate. The second, one of the points here will resonate here is embracing fully remote and asynchronous work. Actually, I got my order mixed up here. So I think the automation of development processes is really important, right? We've talked about that in terms of the ability to minimize the time that's spent on mundane processes and driving innovation, right? So in the same way that folks are excited about AI and ML, I think their abilities to leverage their opportunities rather to leverage those capabilities to allow this focus on value-added activities, right? So as an example, we're seeing platforms such as ZenHub supporting scheduling based on business logic, the auto population of issues and carrying over unfinished work into sprints and upcoming project intervals. That is something that is absolutely something that we recommend that leaders invest in. We've talked about open source already, and I think the leader version of that pitch is slightly different, right? So I think often leaders worry, well, is this going to reduce my competitiveness, or how do I monetize this? What's the business model associated with open source? Well, what we've seen is that in this research and beyond is that it's actually leveraging open source contributions as a way, as we've talked about, for hiring, to drive hiring, but also to drive industry adoption, and allow for some mitigation of the business risk associated with an attendant with any business venture. So that's kind of in a nutshell some of the recommendations here. John, any thoughts? And
well, I'll not to beat a dead horse, but I'll end where I started, which is to say the arc of time bends toward automation and abstraction, reducing friction with your developers and your developer teams. What does that? And solve for that question, frankly. So if you're solving for developer time, that's the biggest pain, is non-meaningfully spent time. And how do you solve for that? You automate away things, you abstract away things, because you're not going to hire your way out of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I mean, like when you talk about the kind of economic problem here around just a limited supply of these talented and skilled developers, you have to invest in those technologies that will allow you to kind of streamline and basically force multiply your capacity. All right, with that, we come to kind of the Q&A session, portion rather of the session. And maybe I'll throw it to you, Amelia, as to any questions that are in the chat.
Sure, yeah. So anyone, if you have questions, use the Q&A feature just at the bottom there of the toolbar. We do have one that's come in here. I'm just going to read these ones that are coming up because not everyone can see them. Okay. What were the most surprising findings of the research?
Oh, that's a great question. I think probably I teased this out earlier, is that I was very surprised, as somebody who has been intimately involved in making decisions around tooling and processes in the past. that the ROI, the total cost of ownership, TCO type of considerations weren't higher on the list. And I think that, what did you say, John, about old people or whatever? Maybe I'm showing my crustiness. I mean, I'm showing my crustiness here, that I think for modern software-led organizations, it's really about giving people the tools that they need to succeed and push the envelope in a way that is disruptive, as opposed to, is this going to save me 10% over the course of 3 years? What do you think, John?
So that one surprised me less. I've spent a lot of time talking to CIOs on as part of interviews, with again, my research hat on, and I feel like they have figured that out. That they have figured out, like, it's not so much about TCO anymore. It's not so much about ROI. It's much more about leveraging my revenue driving centers and my developer teams. I've spent almost as much time talking with other clients, CMOs at other clients, friends of mine at like DataStax or whatever, trying to convince them that it's not about TCO anymore, with mixed success. For me, the surprising thing was actually the agile one, and I think I really like your take on it, Tabang. That it doesn't matter if you're using capital A agile or not. It's all about small a agile, and whatever fits your team and fits the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, especially given the folks that were sampled in this research, there's a pragmatism and realism that kind of hits or sets in when you have to meet payroll and keep investors happy, that, hey, it's really about what's going to deliver results. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Amelia?
Yeah, we do have a couple more. Do we have time for one more?
Yes.
I know we're coming up on time. All right.
Tell me.
All right, This one's a good one. How are disruptive team leaders dealing with developer retention and hiring during the Great Quit?
Oh, that's a good one. John, do you want to take this one?
I knew you were going to do that. Okay, so how are they dealing with not enough skilled developers, right? And it's it's hard, right? Because we went through a phase where it was, okay, we're going to hire more talent. Well, now you can't, because you either can't afford it or you can't find them. And then you went through a phase of, well, we'll just outsource, and that's still obviously happening. You're trying to, but now, we're in a phase where AI and machine learning, again, buzzwords, air quotes, all that jazz, but AI and machine learning have come of age to a level where that actually is a solution. You can actually automate more than you used to be able to automate, right? This problem of not enough skilled developers, it's especially acute, as I think you said earlier, Tabang, for startups and small companies, right? Not everybody's Google. You can't just throw money at the problem and actually scoop up the talent. So it's hard. So how do you retain them then? You retain them by making their jobs more enjoyable, by making, allowing them to do what they want to do through automating with these tools that are now available as AI and machine learning have come of age, right? So really leveraging that. That's my hot take, Tabang. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think that's well, certainly it's borne out by the data. What I'd also add to that is that developers and engineers, I'm a trained engineer myself, and I think the thing that motivates me after all of these years and mileage on the wheels here, what motivates me is the opportunity to learn, right? And I think for me, when you look at the data and the technologies that people are most excited about, I think the way to attract and retain folks, particularly the top talent, is give them access to cool technologies and the ability to expand and grow as people. I think we saw this particularly profoundly during the pandemic, and now entering into the hopefully the post-pandemic. I don't want to jinx it. Post-pandemic period here.
All on you if we're not.
It's on me. Yeah, is the idea that people want to grow in their lives and in their careers, and I think creating the conditions and environment for people to do that, and giving them access to technologies and you know, so that they can look back and say, hey, I contributed to being to something really important and impactful. I think that's my you know, anecdotal, somewhat based on the data response to that.
No, that's a great point. You don't, we don't have the data in this survey, but just, you know, again, I've been doing research in this industry for quite some time. That is absolutely true, right? Like the magic time or the tinker time that developers have, it's precious, right? And organizations that create more space for that are going to be much more attractive to work for. That's a really good point, Devon.
Yeah, for sure. So we are at time, I believe. So first of all, I wanted to thank everyone who's joined us live, and of course through the magic of on-demand webinars, this will live on. I really do invite folks to download the report and the research if you haven't already. You know, subscribe and or follow us on our social channels, and you know, let's have a dialogue and you know, discuss what your priorities are, and you know, share your thoughts, that kind of thing. So we can all learn together, so to speak. I really want to thank you, John, for jumping on this call and joining us from Colorado. Your collaboration has really been invaluable, and we've benefited. I think we've all of us on the call here have benefited from your insights. Thank you.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks very much, Devon.
All right, with that, Amelia, I think we're gonna farewell.
We will. I just have a couple of closing words just for some housekeeping. So thank you both so much. That was great. Thank you everyone for attending. I just want to ask everyone who did attend to take a second to fill out the survey at the end. It'll pop up as soon as you close out. And we'll be sending out an invite for our next event, and then a shameless plug for our community. I've posted the link. Please join us in there for further conversation, sharing knowledge, connecting with others ZenHub users. We would love that. And again, thank you both so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take care.
Bye.